Narrative distance is one of the most powerful tools you have as a fiction writer. Yet most writers never learn to control it on purpose. Today, we are going to change that. We will explore narrative distance as a precision instrument, something you can adjust deliberately to shape how readers experience your story. By the end, you will understand the psychic distance spectrum, how to manipulate distance intentionally, and how to use it to control both emotion and information. Let's begin with a simple but important idea. Narrative distance is not a binary switch. It is not just close or far, in or out. It is a precision instrument with many calibrations. Most writers stumble into a distance by accident, then stay there out of habit. Professional writers do something different. They manipulate distance the way a cinematographer controls focal length, deliberately, dynamically, and always in service of a specific effect. To use this tool well, you need to understand that distance actually operates along two separate axes. The first axis is reader-to-character distance, also called psychic distance. This measures how close we get to a character's consciousness. It ranges from distant observation all the way to deep, immersive intimacy. The second axis is reader-to-narrator distance, which is about narrative reliability and tone. This is the relationship between the reader and the storytelling voice itself. It ranges from complete trust all the way to active suspicion or ironic separation. These two axes work independently, and great writers control both. Let's start with the first axis, psychic distance. The clearest map of this spectrum comes from John Gardner. He described 5 distinct levels, moving from maximum distance to maximum intimacy. Level 1 is maximum distance. It sounds like this. It was winter of the year 1853. A large man stepped out of a doorway. We are far away, observing from above, almost like a historian. Level 2 moves a little closer. Henry Warburton had never much cared for snowstorms. Now we know a name and a small preference, but we are still outside. Level 3 brings us nearer to the action. Henry trudged through the drifts, collar up against the wind. We are with him physically, watching his movements. Level 4 slips inside his head. The wind bit through his coat, should have stayed inside. That second thought belongs to Henry, and we are sharing it. Level 5 is maximum intimacy. Cold, so cold, fingers gone numb again. Now there is no separation at all. We are inside the raw stream of his experience. Here is the key insight. Most writers unconsciously park at level 3 and rarely move. That is the problem we are trying to solve. So let's talk about when distance should serve your story. There are powerful reasons to pull back and use greater distance. The first is establishing context or setting. When you open a new scene or chapter, distance lets you introduce a location before zooming into a character. It also lets you provide information the point of view character would not consciously notice. Consider this example. The copper bell had seen better decades. What passed for a lunch crowd, 3 farmers and a traveling salesman hunched over their plates like men protecting claims. Annie pushed through the door, letting in a blast of December. Notice how the first sentences establish the place at a distance. Only the third sentence brings Annie into frame, and even then, we stay observational. Distance lets you set the stage before you narrow in. The second reason to use distance is accelerating time. Distance lets you summarize periods where intimacy would simply bore the reader. It moves you between significant scenes and covers logistics without tedium. Here's how that looks. The next 3 weeks followed the pattern. Early mornings at the site, afternoons reviewing permits, evenings trying to charm board members who had already made up their minds. By mid-October, Sarah knew she had lost. Living inside 3 weeks of meetings would be punishing. Distance compresses time while keeping the story moving forward. The third reason is one many writers find surprising. Distance can manage overwhelming emotion. Paradoxically, pulling back can intensify impact. Stepping away from trauma can make it more devastating, and it helps you avoid melodrama in grief or violence. Look at this example. He told them about the diagnosis on a Tuesday. His mother cried. His father asked questions about treatment protocols. Marcus watched snow collect on the window ledge. The camera pulls back from Marcus's interior state. That restraint creates more power than drowning in his emotions ever could. Distance also helps you control the flow of information. You can withhold a character's thoughts to preserve mystery. You can manage what the reader knows relative to what the character knows. This is how you build dramatic irony. And finally, Wider distance helps when you handle multiple characters in a single scene. It allows equitable treatment of several points of view. It prevents reader whiplash from too close perspective shifts. And it maintains objective observation of group dynamics. Now let's flip to the other end of the spectrum. When does intimacy serve the story? Use closer distance when you need to reveal a character's essence. These are the moments that define who someone truly is. They include interior conflicts that drive decisions, and the unique perceptual filters that make a character distinct. Consider this passage. The lies came easier now. That should have worried him. Instead, watching Denise's face soften, believing him again, Marcus felt something like relief. Or maybe just exhaustion. Hard to tell the difference anymore. This lives at level 4 and 5, deep inside Marcus's consciousness, revealing a moral erosion he is only half aware of. Use closer distance for high-stakes moments. Climactic decisions, critical revelations, physical or emotional crisis points. First kisses, last breaths, the moments that matter most. In these moments, the reader needs to be inside the experience, not watching it from across the room. Intimacy also creates empathy and understanding. When you need readers to connect with a difficult character, getting close helps. It explains actions that might seem inexplicable from the outside. It builds investment in what happens to the character. Closer distance also establishes voice. Strong first person or close third person requires consistent intimacy. The character's unique perceptual lens becomes the style itself. And finally, intimacy helps differentiate characters in multiple point-of-view stories. Close distance emphasizes how different characters process the world. It creates variety between point-of-view chapters and keeps characters from feeling interchangeable. Now, let's return to that second axis we mentioned earlier, the reader-to-narrator distance. This dimension operates completely independently of how close we are to a character. There are 3 key positions here. The first is the reliable, sympathetic narrator. Here, the reader and narrator are aligned. What we are told, we generally trust. The narrative voice is a guide, not a puzzle. Listen to this example. She knew what Marcus was doing, the same thing she had done at his age. Testing boundaries. Seeing how much he could get away with. What worried her was not the rebellion, it was how little joy he took in it. We trust this narrator's assessment, and the intimacy serves our understanding. The second position is the unreliable narrator. Here, the reader must evaluate the narrative claims for themselves. The distance creates suspicion or doubt. We are close to the narrator, but we do not trust them. Now watch the same intimacy used differently. She understood Marcus perfectly. Every teenager went through this phase. The moods, the secrecy, the irrational anger. He would grow out of it. He had to. Because the alternative, the possibility that she had somehow failed him, that her choices had damaged something irreparable, no. That was not possible. The closeness is identical, but now we doubt her assessment. The denial is visible right there on the page. The third position is the ironic narrator. Here, the reader and author share knowledge that the narrator lacks. This is often comic or satirical, and it creates a kind of conspiracy between author and reader. Consider this example. Senator Blackwood had always prided himself on his connection to ordinary people. Sure, his 4 homes and private jet created some distance, but at heart, he remained a man of the people. The real people. The ones who mattered. The narrator presents Blackwood completely straight. The irony emerges from the juxtaposition, and the joke belongs to the author and the reader. So how do we put all of this together? Here is the professional move. Static distance is the amateur mistake. Distance should modulate through your story like focus in a film. There is a reliable pattern for this. Open wide to establish context, setting, and situation. Then narrow to a specific character in a specific moment. Dive deep for the key beats, the emotion, the decision, the revelation. Then pull back again to move through time or shift scenes. Let's see this modulation happen paragraph by paragraph. The memorial service drew maybe 40 people, larger than Martin expected, smaller than dignity required. That is the wide establishing shot. He stood at the back, collar itching, wondering if he could slip out during the first hymn. Now we have narrowed to Martin, but we are still somewhat external. Someone was talking about her volunteer work, someone else about her garden. They were describing a person he had never met. His mother grew irises because they demanded nothing. She volunteered because empty hours terrified her. But these people did not know that. How could they? That is deep intimacy, an interior conflict only Martin can feel. The service lasted 32 minutes. Afterward, he shook hands with strangers and heard himself say, "Thank you," 40, 50, 60 times. By the time the last of them left, the words had lost meaning entirely. And there we pull back again, summarizing and compressing time. Watch how a single scene moves through every level of distance in just 4 paragraphs. That is the difference between an amateur and a professional. So here is what I want you to take away. Narrative distance is a variable tool, not a fixed setting. You control 2 axes at once: how close the reader sits to your character, and how much the reader trusts your narrator. Pull back for context, time, restraint, and information control. Move close for character essence, high-stakes moments, and empathy. Then, learn to toggle deliberately between them. Stop parking at level 3. Start treating distance as the precision instrument it truly is. And your storytelling will become sharper, deeper, and far more controlled.